Hey, it's our weekly streaming show, and here's a sneak peek at our top streamer of the week. And this is an ugly week, so I guess go get you some Taylor Heinicke. Rostered just 11% of Yahoo leagues. He's coming off what passed for a decent quarterback game this past week against the Vikings. Ended the day as the fantasy quarterback 13. Heinicke's not a bad player. He had 12-6 touchdown interception ratio in 9 games with Washington last season. Falcons have a great group of weapons for him to work with, and most importantly, he faces the struggling Arizona defense this week. Cardinals ranked 29th in AFPA to opposing quarterbacks this season, and with Kyler Murray expected to return, I think Arizona will keep it just close enough for the Falcons to have to throw the ball. So in a week of bad streaming options, Heinicke is worth a gamble in week 10. Now let's get to the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Most Accurate Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Niles. With me is my fantastic co-host, the great Jen Akins. Jen, how's it going, buddy?
It's going. I wish I could say I felt a little better, so I do apologize to the people that are listening and not watching, and you're hearing my voice. I can't imagine it's very appealing right now, and hopefully I won't have too many coughing slash sneezing fits on the podcast. But as we know, the show must go on, so I'm here. Brandon, I believe you are under the weather as well, so we are in the All Sick podcast. How you doing?
My throat is on fire right now, so we'll see what happens. I've got my adoring wife, who's wonderful, brought me some tea. So, but we're gonna do this because you know what? Streaming options don't know sickness, Jen. And I just want to say, regarding your voice, do you remember the old Donald Duck cartoon where he gets sick and he becomes a crooning option? Like he's sick and then he's a crooner. And then
I actually don't remember that.
Yeah, he becomes a famous crooner because Donald Duck, he's sick and he's a famous crooner, has a great voice. So maybe this is the beginning of your crooning career, Jen. That's what I have to say.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, maybe I'll become the new. I can't even think of a crooner right now. My gosh, my brain.
Michael Bublé.
Yes,
Bublé. There
thank
we go.
You. This should be interesting.
Michael Bublé also not a bad streaming option this week.
It's probably better than some of the other options that we have.
It's ugly. It's ugly. So, as I said, welcome to our weekly streamer show. We highlight the quarterbacks, tight ends, kickers, and team defenses you should be targeting as streaming options for the upcoming week. As a reminder, we only discuss the streaming option if they're available in 40% or less of Yahoo leagues. So if your favorite option isn't discussed, they're probably rostered in too many leagues. That was definitely the case with Will Levis this week, who I still like, despite not having a great fantasy outing against the Steelers. He looked pretty good, Jen. Will Levis looked pretty good.
He did. Listen, I was not a believer. I mean, yeah, I love it. I love to see these young guys do well, and especially when you're replacing such a vanilla Ryan Tannehill, it's fun to have someone's, especially for the fantasy pieces. It's like, ooh, yeah. maybe actually we've got some relevancy again.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Finding DeAndre Hopkins out there. Thank you to our friend Tom, who says being sick doesn't change our great advice. Thanks, Tom. We appreciate you. Let's hit a few questions before we get going. Office Depot is in the chat today saying, happy waiver day. Carson Wentz in LA, potentially Matt Barkley with the Giants. Do we see anyone getting starts in 2024 starts? So that's next year. I don't think 2024. I think if Stafford's injury is as bad as we think, Carson Wentz could be a streamer. I'm not going anywhere near the Giants quarterback situation. I just that just looks ugly to me right now. Saquon Barkley is the only person I'm touching, and Wan'Dale Robinson in deep PPR formats. I'll probably throw a little bit at, but that's it. Let's see here. Corey Jackson has Laporta, Hill, and the Bills tight end. Who are you playing this week? Jen, I'm going to let you handle that one. Those are kind of all good options to me.
Yeah, that's kind of a good problem to have. I'm not sure what your scoring format is, but I'd say Laporta or can actually, I mean, Laporta's got a really good matchup against the Chargers. Kincaid has a really good matchup against the Broncos, both bottom basemen in against tight ends. So I would say one of those two. I mean, Taysom Hill, we know, right? I mean, Taysom Hill is Taysom Hill. He's probably going to blow up. He may not, whatever. But for me, I probably give Laporta a little bit of an edge there, but I like them both. Kincaid at home is a nice option too. But if you have to twist my arm and I have to pick, I pick Laporta.
Kincaid quietly like 20, I don't remember the exact 23 or 26 targets over the last 3 games, like pretty ridiculous. So pretty good. Office Depot says the term crooner is lost with today's youth. But to be fair, I'm one of the oldest people out there talking fantasy football nowadays. So
hello,
that's
I'm sitting right next to you there, mister. I got you by a little bit.
It's how we do. We bring the outdated references here, Jen. That's what I believe that I'm here for. Hello, Space Ghost.
Well, wait a minute. There's modern day crooners, right? Do they just have a different term? Because Bublé, it's not like Michael Bublé is ancient. It's not like you're whipping out, Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra, right?
It's true.
Mean, Bublé is a more modern reference to the crooner. Like, I would assume these guys know who he is, right?
Right? There we go. Plus, Michael Bublé, wonderful Ham and Bubbly sketch on SNL several years back with John Hamm. It's absolutely fantastic. So let's. I'm sorry for derailing us so bad today. It's already it's the sickness. It's just gone. Uncle Ted is all in on Keaton Mitchell. I think I wanted to dedicate a little bit of time to Keaton Mitchell today. First off, I love the kid. Super talented, fast. He runs hard. Actually added him in all my dynasty leagues back in August. I really like Keaton Mitchell. I'm a little worried about spending big to get him and like trotting him out in redraft lineups because I do think Gus Edwards is going to get the short yardage work. I think Justin is better at pass blocking, so I think he's going to continue to get snaps. What's your take on Mitchell this week as a must add? Because people are adding him and very high on him, and he's really exciting. But what's your take, Jen?
Of course. I think that the waiver wire is slim. So I absolutely understand the fervor for him because he is a body that, but like you said, I think Gus Edwards is going to get the short stuff. I think Gus Edwards is going to get the goal line stuff too. So I think Mitchell is fine in a situation where if you have fab to spend and he's there and you're hurting at running back, which most of us are, like, I'm down with it. But I don't know that he's going to be this RB1 that people, might possibly thinking. But yeah, I mean, he's finally healthy. He's, I think it's, I think we need to temper expectations a little bit. But I think in a week where the waiver wire is pretty slim, that I totally understand why you'd add him.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Space Ghost Force wants to know if they should acquire Cortland Sutton in a 4th-round pick for Rondale Moore in a 2nd-round pick. Unless you're desperate at wide receiver, I don't think I'm buying into the Denver passing game right now. A 2nd-round pick is a pretty significant thing to pay, I think, for Sutton. So Sutton's not a bad option, and he's going to help you. So I like it if you're Cortland Sutton away from competing this year, but just as like a long-term asset, I think I'd keep Rondale in the 2nd-round pick. That's where I would land on Dynasty. So let's hit the other quarterbacks. It's a terrible week to stream quarterback, Jen. Like I said, all the good options are all rostered already. Like you could talk me into Levis at Tampa Bay, but he's 44% rostered. Check your waiver to see if maybe Levis is there. You could talk me into some of those other guys that Baker Mayfield that I talk about each week, Sam Howell, but all those guys are rostered in too many leagues. So we have some terrible matchups and terrible quarterbacks, but I think that if you squint, you can find a path for Joshua Dobbs to be a good starter this week. The Saints are 10th in AFPA, so we don't love that. But Joshua Dobbs was the QB4 last week. The Saints allowed Tyson Bagent to be the QB11 last week, largely off of rushing production. And that's what you're hoping for from Joshua Dobbs. You want Dobbs to get the rushing production. He has a rushing touchdown in 3 straight games, 4 on the year with 2 different teams. Decent enough weapons in Minnesota. So like I said, if you can squint, I like Joshua Dobbs just enough piloting that Minnesota offense. And then if you're squinting even further, and really it's Heinicke or Dobbs. I don't really love my 3rd option here. But you can argue Mac Jones at home against Indianapolis isn't bad. The Colts are 18th in AFPA. Mac was the QB 17 last week. He quietly has 5 touchdowns over the past 3 games. He hasn't been good. He just hasn't been awful and turning the ball over crazily the last few weeks. So it's worth kind of considering in a very, very shallow pool. And then if you're even more that Bryce Young faces the Bears are a really good matchup, but Bryce Young hasn't really done anything with those good matchups. So that's why he falls 4th on my list after Mac Jones. I'm probably not looking at Tyson Bagent or Gardner Minshew against New England. New England's tough. Aiden O'Connell against the Jets is a tough matchup. Kenny Pickett against Green Bay. All those guys just seem awful to me. So Joshua Dobbs, Tyler Heinicke, those are kind of the guys that I would go for if I were you. Jen, What do you think of Dobbs coming in off the street, Minnesota, coming in and rallying that team to a win?
That's insane. I mean, with so little knowledge of what was going on there, that he's having, you know, things discussed to him in the headset. Like it's insane what he did. Honestly, I think it's extremely impressive. I mean, aside from the athleticness of what he did, the mental, uh, what he went, and he's obviously a very smart guy. He's literally a rocket scientist, so it makes sense as to why he picked up so quickly and was able to figure it out. But I mean, he was there for like 3 days and had no intention of playing. So I think that's pretty impressive.
Excellent. And then, Jen, we've got a question from Office Depot. Needs to start
Yeah.
two in a PPR, Juwan Johnson and Taysom Hill, or Aiden O'Connell and Taysom Hill. Aiden O'Connell faces that really, really tough Jets defense that just kind of made mincemeat out of Justin Herbert last night. But Juwan Johnson, inconsistent target share. So who are you starting in that other flex spot next to Taysom Hill?
Well, we're going to get to Juwan Johnson in a little bit as a teaser. But it's hard because in Superflex, I'm usually all about a quarterback unless you have someone really, really strong. And neither of those guys are really, really strong over that quarterback. But like you said, Aiden O'Connell is facing a difficult defense there. So I would say maybe Taysom and John. I mean, that's a tough one.
You're basically just hoping with AOC, you're hoping he doesn't throw 3 picks. And with Johnson, you're just hoping he scores a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on your specific scoring system. If you're heavily penalized for picks, I would maybe go with both of the tight ends there. But both of those New Orleans players, you hope Johnson gets in, and you hope Taysom throws the ball to him again, because that's how Johnson got in last week, is from a pass from Taysom. So I'd probably go with both tight ends, but I would hold my nose and not love it.
Excellent. All right, let's ZEVXLR6. Thanks for the question. Currently 6-3 non-PPR. Just traded Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson for Jay Jettis, who I think is Justin Jefferson. What do you guys think? As long as you're okay and you have someone to start while you wait for Justin Jefferson to come back, I'm okay with that. What do you think, Jen?
Yeah. I mean, it's so rare you see 3 players on the same team in a trade.
That is.
So yeah, but yeah, I mean, Justin Jefferson, I know I saw a blurb that he's working his way back. Hopefully they bring him back. Hopefully Dobbs provide, because there was a concern for a bit that they may just shut him down. But now that Dobbs is there and that they're still in contention, so to speak, I don't hate that. No.
Interesting. I like that. Okay, Fantasy Football 101. Would you start Kyler Murray or Sam Howell this week? I'm going to take a wait-and-see approach on Kyler Murray. I like the idea of him coming in. It's a good matchup, but Sam Howell plays the Seahawks, and the Seahawks have been awful defensively. So to me, Sam Howell's a must-start this week. Jen, would you start Russell Wilson? I talked about Joshua Dobbs and Taylor Heinicke. I kind of like Joshua Dobbs over Wilson, but Wilson, faces Buffalo. The Bills have been a little... What do you think? Would you start Russ over those streamers?
Probably not. I feel like on the road in Buffalo's coming off a brutal loss. Like, I just don't know. I don't love that for Wilson. I don't love Wilson anyway, to be, perfectly frank, but I feel like on the road in Buffalo after a loss, I don't know that I would do that. Is that different than the Kyler Murray, Sam Howell?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I jumped to Tom Sturdivant's question and didn't state it. Sorry about that, Tom.
No, I just was like, well, I was gonna say of the 3, I would obviously start. I would pick Howell, but I didn't know if that was a different question or not.
I jump questions. It's the deliriousness. the medication is kicking in, and I'm getting delirious. Tom, yes. Russell Wilson. I think you could argue Wilson. I think I'd probably start Joshua Dobbs. I don't know that I would drop Russell Wilson for Dobbs, but if you can roster both and do Dobbs this week and hope he runs in another touchdown, that makes a lot of sense to me. Let's see here. Uncle Ted wants to know if Justin Fields is back. Not yet, but I don't know. Hopefully soon. Julio Ramirez, Chuba Hubbard, Khalil Herbert, or Keaton Mitchell. So Herbert isn't definitely back, but he might be. So keep an eye on that. If he's back, I probably go with Khalil Herbert in that situation because I do think they're going to continue to give him touches. But Chuba Hubbard's really the starter there. He hasn't been good since taking over the starting role, so
He has a
that's
really good
tough.
matchup, though.
He does.
He's playing Chicago, who are 28th against the run. So,
That might
um,
do it.
and yeah, I mean, they say that they're going to give Miles Sanders more touches this week, but I don't buy it. Like, why would you?
Yeah, Sanders hasn't been good either. So yeah, let's call it Hubbard and then Herbert and then Mitchell. Let's just rank it the way you've got them listed there. That makes perfect sense to me. So Jen, I
Yes.
am going to ask you my favorite question every week, the
Let
most
me
important
take a
question.
moment to cough while you do that. So go
Yes,
ahead.
please do. Please do. This question is the most important question that I can think of to ask anyone in the history of the world, and that's: is it a good week to stream tight end?
Okay. It is not a good week to stream tight ends, unfortunately. And we're missing a couple, we're missing Kelsey. We're missing Goddard because he's hurt and they're on a bye. And then Higbee, is Higbee, and Miami is Miami. But yeah, so we're missing a few tight ends, and you would hope we had some good fill-ins, but we don't. I mean, they're fine. I've rooted out a few that you guys can start if necessary, but I don't love any of them. But I will get to them. Let's go. First one is Hunter Henry against the Colts in Germany. He is 38% rostered. So he's coming off his best performance since week 2. He had 7 targets in that first game without Kendrick Bourne, which was last week. The Colts are 26 in tight end adjusted fantasy points allowed. They're allowing 11.7 per game in half PPR scoring. So hopefully his volume continues into this week with Kendrick Bourne out, and Devontae Parker is, I don't know, possibly out, maybe out. He seems to be questionable perennially this season. So that doesn't really make sense. Perennial, whatever. But
That's okay. I think you made your point.
you know what I mean. So Hunter Henry is the first guy. Second guy I have is a guy that you and I have been talking about, I think, since June, and that would be Cade Otton.
Yeah, buddy. Cade Otton.
I mean, we've been talking about him since, I think, June, maybe even before. Possibly
We were definitely drafting him in best ball.
Oh yeah, we possibly were talking about him in April. I don't know, but here he is. He's against Tennessee. He is only 6% rostered. He's had 21 targets in the last 3 games. He is the tight end 7 in half PPR scoring in the last 3 games.
Wow.
Clearly has good chemistry with Baker. However, bad matchup. They're playing the Titans are actually number 1 against the tight end. So not a good matchup at all, but he's in the conversation because he is available on 94% of Yahoo rosters, and he's getting a lot of volume. So maybe he'll get in the end zone this week or something. But if you need him, he is there. The third guy we talked about a little bit before, and that is Juwan Johnson. He's on the road in Minnesota. He is 10% rostered. He's back from injury. He caught all 5 of his targets for 29 yards and a touchdown last week. It was a second game back from injury. And he's been out since week 3. But the Vikings are fairly soft against the tight end. They rank 15th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the tight end. So he's kind of the third guy there. Don't love him. Don't love any of them. But if you need him, I think those are the best options that we have.
Kind of got yeah, it's weird. It's kind of like quarterbacks, right? The guys that are available have bad matchups, the good ones have bad matchups, and the bad ones have the good matchups.
Yeah, I mean it's really not fantastic, and the options are pretty slim because all the good guys are either rostered over 40% or hurt, and so we're kind of scrounging. You get down to like the Bellingers and and I can't recommend those guys. So
hard to buy the Giants though. Is there anyone in Philly worth picking up? I'm just curious. Because we know Dallas Goedert's going to be
they're on a bye, so
sorry, I'm jumping to a stash question.
Yeah.
I'll ask that question again when we get to stashes.
Yeah. Let's wait till yeah.
I'll table that. Okay, all right. So let's hit a few more questions. Mike Zarati wants to know if they should start Zach Moss or Jahan Dotson. Jahan Dotson's an awfully good matchup. And Zach Moss was down in the 20% range snap count last week. So it seems like Jonathan Taylor's back to his full workload. Moss still got touches, but I think he was down to like 7 carries. He's not 100%. I think Dotson's my call there. What do you think, Jen?
I would go Dotson as well, even though I did tell everyone to drop him about 3 weeks ago. But he is making a comeback, which is good to see.
Yeah.
I didn't even take my own advice and I kept him, but I haven't put him in, but
Yeah, I haven't started him. I've
he
got
is
him a
on,
lot, but I
yeah,
haven't started him.
he's on one of my benches. But yes, between those two, I would pick Dotson. Like you said, great matchup in Seattle.
Excellent. Alex Flores, trade Bijan Robinson for Devontae Adams. That's kind of a challenge trade, right? You're selling low on both sides of
Yeah.
that. I don't mind it. It's really whatever position you need. If you need the running back, I'd keep Bijan. If you need the receiver, I'd go ahead and make the trade. I think that's fine. Luis Nunez got an offer for CJ Stroud and Keenan Allen. They get Mahomes and Jacoby Myers. They also have Jefferson, Dotson, Diggs, and Demario Douglas. So Stroud and Allen giving up to get Mahomes and Jacoby. I don't know. Like, is Mahomes that much better than Stroud right now? We love Mahomes, but he's not putting up big fantasy numbers.
I was going to say the same thing. Like, I don't know that you're getting... I mean, you're giving up a better receiver, and you're getting... I mean, in the end, Mahomes will, I would assume, would prove better than CJ Stroud down the stretch. But at the moment, it's kind of negligible for what you're giving up. So, and you are, well, I mean, you have really good receivers. Of course, when Jefferson comes back, I mean, Diggs and Allen combo is pretty deadly right now.
Yeah, it's really, really tough. I think I would probably just hold on to Stroud and Allen, but it's okay if you want to make that trade for Mahomes. I don't mind it too much. Ricky AA, Hollywood versus Atlanta, or Jacoby Myers versus the Jets, both at home. For me, with Kyler Murray back, it's definitely Hollywood. The Jets are really, really good against receivers. It's definitely Hollywood Brown for me. Carchizzle, we already talked about Herbert and Mitchell a little bit. Both are on waivers. I would grab Herbert. I just think he's going to have more week-to-week potential for your lineup. But if you're looking for like a last roster spot, like you have good running backs, you just want a stash option, then you could talk me into Mitchell as the more upside long-term. I think that's it. So Jen.
Yes.
The other most important question I have to ask of you every week.
Yes.
Is it a good week to stream kicker?
It is. It is a good week to stream kickers. The good news with kickers is that with buys, we always have guys that are dropped coming back, all that, that kind of shuffling of kickers. So there's usually pretty good ones during the bye week seasons because people are dropping because you don't want to hang on to a kicker. So yes, to answer your question, it is a good week to stream kickers. The first one I have is Jason Myers. We've talked about that game a lot, weirdly, but Jason Myers at home against Washington. He is 39% rostered, so he's right up against the cutoff. Seattle are 6.5 point favorites at home with a 26 implied team total, which is actually the fourth highest on the slate this week. So I know Seattle had a rough game last week against Baltimore. They struggled offensively. I think this week will be a different story against Washington, and I think Myers will get some opportunity to add to your roster there. So he's the first one I have. The second one is Riley Patterson on the road against the Chargers. He is 21% rostered. He's coming off a bye, so that's, I think, why he's probably available because he's been a very solid kicker. The Lions are 1.5 point road favorites with an implied team total of 25. So I think that the Lions should get back, or not back on track, but continue to do what they're doing, and Riley Patterson will have some opportunity there. The third guy... Sorry, I thought I had to cough. I don't. I'm going to choke it down and keep rolling. Third guy is Jake Moody. Same situation. He's coming off a bye. He is on the road as well in Jacksonville. He is 17% rostered. San Francisco's a field goal favorite on the road here with a 24-point implied team total. So I think those are three really solid. I did bring a bonus. The bonus I usually bring is like a super low rostered guy for the deep leagues. I didn't do that this week. I bought Blake Grupe, who's 34% rostered, but he was kicker 10 last week. He's got another good matchup in Minnesota in the Dome. They're 2.5 point favorites on the road with a 21.5 implied team total.
Grupe is the guy that was available that I've picked up in all my leagues where I have somebody on bye. Also, my 4-year-old is as sick as I am and is screaming her head off. So apologies for as that picks up on the feed. I apologize for that. Mike Cerrone wants to know why Dustin Hopkins is underrated. I guess just because the Browns' offense is so hard to predict. What do you think, Jen?
Yeah, I mean they've been pretty up and down. They've had, a little shift at quarterback a couple times. I think that Dustin Hopkins, though, is 68% rostered. So he's not really available for this conversation. So, I mean, I don't think he's that underrated. He is, like I said, he's rostered in 68% of leagues. So people are starting him. Let me see real quick where he ranks on the season. Because I know, like you said, uh, Cleveland has been a little up and down. He's actually kicker 2 on the season.
Coming off a great week last week too.
Yeah, he's averaging 10.88 fantasy points a week. So good for him. But yeah, I mean, if he's available in your league, go for it. But usually the leagues, if he's rostered in 68%, he's not available in mine.
Carchisel, Pittsburgh defense, a good play this week. Yes, absolutely. They're heavily rostered, but if you've got the Pittsburgh Steelers defense against the Green Bay Packers, then definitely start them. I like that a lot. Toby wants to know which running back to pick up for the end of the bench. Looking at backups in case the starter gets hurt. Justice Hill, Rico Dowdle, Tank Bigsby, Eli Mitchell, or Jamal Williams. They have Kamara in a half PPR. I would go with Jamal Williams of that group. You could talk me into Rico Dowdle. I don't really love any of these guys, to be honest. I wish Tyjae Spears was on your list. That would probably be the guy I would pick. Tank Bigsby I'm okay with, but I'd probably just handcuff Kamara and just take Jamal Williams. What do you think, Jen?
I would probably lean towards Dowdle or possibly Elijah Mitchell. I mean, they've been using McCaffrey a lot, and I know I don't think not that I think anything's going to happen to him or anything, but God forbid it does. He's right there, and he's healthy finally. So I don't need any of them. I think that Justice Hill and Bigsby is just frustrating. He's been a guy that I think I've picked up and dropped about 4 times this season already, waiting for something to happen, and it's not. Rico Dowdle, I feel like they should be giving him more opportunity. I mean, Pollard has been fine. I mean, not for fantasy purposes, but so yeah, for me, I think I'd go Eli Mitchell or possibly Jamal Williams. I love Jamal Williams as a person. I mean, he's hilarious. He's awesome. But this year, he's just not really, it's not happening. I mean, it was hurt, but.
Excellent. Also, just a reminder here, the San Francisco defense and San Francisco kicker, Jake Moody, are both rostered in too many leagues and Yahoo way too many. But they are coming off a bye. And so some leagues, those guys are going to be available. So just kind of take a quick look at your waivers and make sure Jake Moody and the San Francisco defense aren't sitting out there for you.
Well, yeah, Moody was just one of my streamers. I don't know if your brain...
Oh, it was... Look, it's all brain fog.
Get it.
I was thinking San Francisco defense and then just tacked on Jake Moody.
No, I hear you. No, Moody is only 17% rostered, so definitely see if he's out there. He was my second streamer, and listen, I get it. We are both not all there, so
I'm heavily medicated. I apologize. Mike Zarati, keep and start situation or trade away James Cook. And Buffalo's scared to hold him until it's too late to find a trade partner for him. I'm okay trading James Cook just because it doesn't seem like that Buffalo Bills offense uses the running back in the way that we want. I like Cook. Like, he's not a drop for me, but if you can get value for him, I would trade him. Jen, I know you probably have a much stronger James Cook opinion than I do.
Well, I have a biased James Cook opinion because I love the guy, but he has a really good matchup this week against Denver. I keep, you keep hoping that but this week it really is. I mean, Denver is dead last against the run, and they're playing, Buffalo's playing at home. You hope this is the week, but like you said, they're not using the running back. I mean, we should have known, right? This is Buffalo, that they're using the running back the way they always use the running back. We were just kind of hoping this year would be different, and it's not. So, feel free to trade him if you can find someone. I don't think that's a horrible idea, but like Brandon said, I definitely wouldn't drop him.
Excellent. Mr. Grapefruit wants to know if they should cut Jordan Love for Josh Dobbs or Baker Mayfield. They have Tua on bye. I would either one of those guys. I like Baker a little better than Dobbs, but either one of those is fine. And I think Jordan Love has shown he's not an every week starter. That's kind of what I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Toby, Harrison Butker is on bye. They can pick up Younghoe Koo, Nick Folk, or Evan McPherson. Which one of those guys do you like for the week out of Koo, Folk, and McPherson, or would you go with one of your streamers?
I think, well, if McPherson's there, I mean, he shouldn't be, but if he's there, I would probably go with McPherson. I think that, let me look real quick. I got to pull up my, give me 1 second. I know this is riveting.
Sure. Lex plants some trees. In the meantime, wants to know if they should drop Tyjae Spears for Khalil Herbert. If it's your RB3 and you need him, then yeah. If it's your RB5 and you don't need him, I'd keep Spears. That's where I am on that one.
Okay, back to me real quick. So yeah, McPherson, they actually have the second highest team implied total of the week. They're at 27.25. The Bengals. They're playing Houston. So if that is an option, I would. And the thing is, like someone asked me this morning on Twitter or X or whatever about Butker, and he's I think kicker 9 right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, great, but not that great. Like you can find that production elsewhere. So I wouldn't hang on to him just to keep him. I would drop him, especially if McPherson is there.
Excellent. Donna Murray needs a quarterback this week, and there's lots of quarterback options on the waiver wire, including C.J. Stroud, Brock Purdy, Will Levis, Dobbs, Derek Carr, and Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield. Lots
Stroud,
of options. Yeah, Stroud. I mean, you gotta grab Stroud after what
yeah,
he just did, and it seems like they're willing to throw the ball in Houston, all season. Stroud's been a little up and down, but his yardage and passing attempts have stayed pretty high. So I would go with Stroud definitely out of that group. Donald Weber, should they drop Zay Flowers for Michael Wilson? You could. I think Wilson has a ton of upside with Kyler Murray coming back. I don't think he's going to lead the team in targets because Hollywood Brown's really good. So I don't know. I think that's kind of a push. I think Flowers has been a little more consistent with his targets, but I don't know. What do you think, Jen? That's a tough one.
yeah, it is a tough one. In fact, so in my my dead weight report that came out this morning on 4for4, I toyed with Flowers for a while, and then I ended up putting him in the on thin ice category. He hasn't been great, and he's been frustrating because I've been using him in the flex, and he's been disappointing. Like you said, Wilson does have upside with Kyler coming back, but I don't know that I would make that move yet. If you have another way to acquire Michael Wilson and then a wait and see, I would probably do that.
I
Which is
like that. No, I like that. That makes perfect sense to me. All right, let's keep it moving. Before we get to defensive streamers, I want to take a minute to talk about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy. Go to prizepicks.com/accurate and use code accurate for a first deposit match up to $100. For week 10, I'm eyeing Dak Prescott to throw for less than 243.5 yards against the Giants. The Giants are terrible on offense, but they're allowing just 211.2 passing yards per game to opposing passers. I'm going to guess the Cowboys destroy the Giants again, end up running the ball for most of the second half. Maybe even we see a little backup quarterback action because it's a lopsided victory for Dallas. And then I also like Demario Douglas to get more than 48.5 receiving yards against a vulnerable Colts secondary. Colts have tightened up a little bit over the second part of this season, but that secondary has been torched by wide receiver ones this year. Douglas is emerging in the offense, 20 targets over his last 3 games, and he's eclipsed the yardage number in 2 of those. So that's where I've got. Don't forget to go to prizepicks.com/accurate and use code accurate for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy. So back to streaming. Let's hit the defensive streamers. Again, it's ugly. I don't like it at all. Normally I would just recommend the Jaguars, but they're at home against the 49ers. And so you don't really want to get the Jags for that. But I don't know. If you're in one of those leagues where the defense doesn't kill you, like you can't get like really bad negative points, I might grab the Jags anyway, just because they're a good defense and they're one you can hang on to. But and it's not a really good streaming option. Similarly, the Cincinnati Bengals are available, and they're only rostered in 28%, and they're a good one. But they're against Houston, and Houston's second in AFPA to opposing defenses. They don't really turn the ball over. They've been putting up good yards, so it's a bad matchup. The one that I'm really targeting is Minnesota at home against New Orleans. New Orleans is 18th in AFPA to opposing defenses. The Vikings have 5 of their last 6. They've won 5 of their last 6, largely because of their defense. They've allowed an average of just 18 points per game over that span. They've forced 9 turnovers over the last 4 games. Danielle Hunter leads the league with 10 sacks. So Minnesota's trending upward defensively, and the Saints are a bit turnover prone. They're a little inconsistent. So I don't love this because Minnesota struggled a lot earlier this season. New Orleans is kind of putting it together, but if you're streaming in a week, I think Minnesota's probably your best bet. And then a couple other teams that I don't like nearly as much as I like Minnesota, but I kind of like the Colts at New England. I'm kind of talking out both sides of my mouth again because I like Mac Jones against the Colts kind of. But, New England's 27th in AFPA to opposing defenses. Colts are quietly tied for 7th in takeaways, tied for 10th in sacks. They seem pretty healthy. Kwity Paye looks as healthy as he's looked all season. They might be getting Julius Brents back, who's kind of a ball hawking second player in the secondary rookie. So I kind of like the Colts against New England. New England's kind of a mess offensively, although they're playing a little better. And then Pittsburgh Packers, obviously the Pittsburgh's too rostered, but I don't hate the Packers on the other side of that either. Packers held the Rams to 3 points last week. I know that was the Brett Ripien Rams, but still, I don't know that Kenny Pickett is that much better than Brett Ripien right now. So in their previous 3 losses, the Packers' previous 3 losses to last week, they still held opponents just 20 points per game. Admittedly, it was Minnesota, Denver, and Las Vegas. But this is more of a hedge against Pittsburgh, which just looks terrible offensively. I'm guessing it's a really low-scoring game, and here's just hoping that Kenny Pickett gets turnover happy. So, again, if you're in a league where the defense doesn't punish you, just go grab the Jags and just, stomach it against the 49ers this week. But if you want to stream each week, Minnesota's probably your best bet. So, that's all I've got for defenses, Jen. The Vikings, kind of easy to root for the Vikings right now.
Yeah. I mean, I find myself always kind of rooting for them for some reason, but I also don't have a dog in the fight there.
Yeah, true.
In that division. So I know a lot of people, Packers and Bear fans and Lions fans, don't find them easy to root for. But
true, Dolphins fan over here. So
we're okay with that, with anyone really in that division.
So Lil Boy Blue asks, they traded Adam Thielen for Cooper Kupp in a full PPR. Yeah. I mean, I'm worried about the Rams quarterback situation, but I feel like that's selling high on Adam Thielen and buying low on Cooper Kupp. So yeah, especially in a full PPR. So
yeah, I feel like, Kupp has to he has to bounce back, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this can't continue. I don't know.
And Carson Wentz, not a fan of Carson Wentz. Like, I don't think he's the great quarterback or anything like that, but Brett Ripien was really bad. And so
yeah, I think Wentz can at least make Kupp back to serviceable, especially in a PPR.
Yep. Donald Weber, should they drop Flowers for Demario Douglas? Again, that's kind of a wash for me. So I'd probably just keep Flowers, but Douglas is interesting. So I kind of like that.
Yeah. I mean, he is the number 1 guy there right now, but, and Flowers had a turn at being the number 1 guy, but I feel like that's kind now there's more Bateman and more Odell Beckham than we kind of would like. So, I mean, if you're looking for pure volume, Douglas might get more on a weekly basis, but Flowers is in a much better offense.
Yeah, and I would agree. I would keep Flowers over Quentin Johnston as well, Donald, for your other question. We're going to rapid fire these other questions because we are running low on time. We still want to get to our stash segment. So will Connor trade Puka and Ayuk away for Breece Hall and Zay Flowers loaded at wide receiver? Yeah, if you need a running back, I'm okay getting Breece Hall for that. Flowers is the non-issue in that, since you have receivers, you probably won't sniff your lineup. So I think Puka and Ayuk for Breece Hall is a lot to give up, but I think it's worthwhile with the receivers that you have. Toby, Pacheco, and Waddle are on bye. Still plays Zay Flowers in the flex. Other options, Quentin Johnston and Khalil Herbert if he comes off PUP. I would go with Herbert if he's starting. If he's not starting, Flowers is the one I would go with. Josu Hidalgo traded Pollard for Achane. Did they do well? Hopefully. Monty and Kamara, hopefully you won't have to start Achane right now, but we'll see. That's a tough one, Jen. Pollard and Achane. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, you're banking on him coming back to exactly how he was before.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Pollard, he hasn't gotten.
He hasn't produced. That's what's tough, right?
I can totally see why you did that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's horrible. I'm down with it. Let's just hope that, they still, and Dolphins are on a bye this week, so hopefully he comes back as he was before.
Let's hope. Tom, how's DJ Moore when Fields returns? I think he's going to continue to be hit or miss, like a boom or bust option. That's what I think, Tom, with DJ Moore. I like him, but I think he's going to continue to be inconsistent. So, Jen.
Yes.
I'm always looking ahead to next week and beyond when I'm setting my waiver wire claims on Tuesday night. So who are the stash players I should be looking at?
Okay. I guess I have to talk now. All right. I was enjoying you just rapid firing. That way I could just sit here. Okay. Stash wise. Okay. So first stash I always do is for next week, for week 11. This is kind of deep, but like I said, every week I try to give you names that are not in every waiver wire list out there. So we're going a kind of a deep pull. We're going Kyle Phillips, wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans, 0% rostered. So he has eight targets so far with Will Levis under center. Treylon Burks is hurt again. Week 11, the Titans face Jacksonville. They're 23rd against the wide receiver in adjusted fantasy points allowed. But as an added bonus, this week they actually have a good matchup as well because the Bucks are 30th against the wide receiver. So after DeAndre Hopkins, someone has to catch the ball, and why not be Kyle Phillips, who I'm sure has plenty of reps with Will Levis from the summer and whatnot. So he's worth a stash, I guess. If you have that room out there, you never know what'll happen. So that's my week 11 stash. You could grab him this week if you're desperate and throw him out there, but if not, you have him for week 11. If he does go off this week and you didn't start him, but you have him.
I kind of like that. Levis was looking for him last week.
Well, thank you. I thought it was a good one as well. All right, so moving on to my second stash here is Pat Freiermuth. He is 36% rostered. He should be back in week 11. He has a really nice schedule for the fantasy playoffs. In weeks 15 through 17, they face the Colts, the Bengals, and the Seahawks. They rank 26th, 32nd, and 19th in adjusted fantasy points to the tight end. So Freiermuth, he's there, and you know he's under the 40% roster mark for that, and hopefully his hamstring is healed and he's ready to rock. Third guy, deepish pull, not really, but Ty Chandler. He's 1% rostered, running back for the Vikings. You know, he's a guy we talked a lot about this summer, and I drafted him in a lot of places and have dropped him and repicked him up and dropped him again. But Cam Akers is out with an Achilles. Madison, he's been inconsistent and inefficient. So it's one of those things, it's a gamble. I mean, Ty Chandler could end up with nothing, or, you know, if he's finally ready to kind of make something happen, then he could possibly make something happen.
Excellent. I love it. And also a big fan of Pat Freiermuth in general. I'm hoping he comes back healthy.
Yeah, me too.
And the Steelers do well. Bronson has 2 questions. Trade Waddle and Khalil Herbert for Devontae Adams. I wouldn't do that. I'm not certain that Devontae Adams is better than Jalen Waddle the rest of the year. So I would probably keep Waddle and Herbert over that. And trade Purdy and Tank Dell for Mark Andrews. It's hard to give up Tank Dell, but it's awfully hard to pass on a trade that nets you Mark Andrews. So I would do that. So I would say no to Adams and yes to Andrews in that situation. Donald wants to know if they should drop Tyler Bass for Brandon Aubrey. Jen.
Sure. Yeah, I don't hate that at all.
I feel like last week you gave everyone permission to drop Tyler Bass.
I did. That was actually a couple weeks ago, and I'm still giving everyone permission for that. And honestly, Aubrey's great. I mean, I actually picked him up off their bye. I have him in every league, and I'm not even streaming anymore. I'm just rolling with him. He's been great. So yes, Donald, I would do that.
Excellent. Captain Spock wants to know what defenses are good to stream. My number 1 this week was Minnesota, but go back and listen to it. Thank you so much to everybody in the chat for joining us and listening in. Thank you to the listeners. Thank you, Jen. Always a pleasure. Any final thoughts before we go?
No, I appreciate everyone putting up with both of us being sick.
I know.
It could not have been fun listening to either of our voices and our brain fog and all of the stuff. But yeah. You guys,
both heavily medicated. My throat's on fire.
I am not medicated, but I should be.
I'm gonna have a lot of whiskey this evening to try to burn that out. That's what's gonna happen for me. Thank you, listeners. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. We're here every Tuesday evening at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So come join us throughout the season live on the 444 YouTube channel to discuss streamers that'll get you through your season. You can follow us on Twitter at Jen Akins NFL and at 2 Guys Brandon. Thanks for checking us out and have a good day.